It only takes one thing to confirm your bias, but 20 other things against your bias and you won't believe it.
Ohio sheriff asks residents to track homes with Harris lawn signs so when the illegal human locusts, which she supports, need places to live, will already have the addresses of their new families. At least 2 comments were left by residents tracking down the homes of Harris supporters. Jesus Christ. Keeping a list of your political opponents.
Springfield is such a beautiful place. Have you seen what's happened to it? It's been overrun. You can't do that to people. They have to be removed.
So you would revoke the temporary protected status?
Absolutely. I'd revoke it and I'd bring them back to their country.
Let's be clear what this is. Trump is saying he's going to deport legal immigrants.
Do you think we should move past that now that Springfield, Ohio says none of this is true? It's not happening here. Please leave us alone. This whole thing about people eating cats and dogs.
I'm not a pet person.
This is the guy trying to...
They're eating the dogs.
And all you can say is, he seems like a nice guy.
That's been disproven and debunked. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I don't like it. That's not what us Americans do. That's not how we live. We fish and stuff like that. We hunt for our food. Don't be eating our pets. I have a dog myself. I could never see someone eating him just because I care for him. He's like my brother, so.
But it's not happening. So are you ready to just say, let's not talk about that anymore?
Honestly, I mean, I would rather Trump talk about it because it is something we need to like stand for and say, hey, we need to address this.
Even if it's not happening?
Yeah, honestly.
If you wanted to appear to be applying this in a fair way, you would say, I'm not just going to target Haitian migrants in Springfield. I'm going to target everyone who is here with a certain status. At least there would be the appearance of being about the law and not about these specific, let's be frank, black migrants from Haiti.
She's allowing virtually unlimited numbers of migrants to enter and be released at the press of a button through her phone app for illegal immigrants.
There's an app for that.
Millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21.
21 million immigrants a month. That's almost the entire population of Australia flooding into the US every single month. At that rate, the US population would double in size in just 15 months.
Finally answer the biggest mystery of the election. Rally.
Hannibal Lecter.
After rally.
Hannibal Lecter.
After rally.
Hannibal Lecter.
That's the part that doesn't make sense.
Or at least it didn't. Until days ago, when one social media poster hit on the explanation that had been staring us in the face the whole time. Donald Trump doesn't know asylum has 2 meanings.
Could explain why he thinks political prisoners claiming asylum from Venezuela are being emptied out of insane asylums.
And that realization set the internet on fire.
Absolutely, that's what it is. If you have listened to Donald Trump's speech patterns, you know that he has this habit of word association where he'll hear a word or he'll say a word and it'll remind him of something else and then he'll latch onto that and then he's off to the races.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Excuse me? A baking powder?
The Mark Robinson fallout continues for both the embattled candidate and the Republican Party.
I got them AR-15s in case the government gets too big for its britches. Because I'm going to fill the backside of them britches with some lead. Go into battle and take the head of your enemy. Because it's time to go to war, folks. Get mad at me if you want to. Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it.
And it doesn't mean that you have to go vote for Ted Cruz, but I'm certainly not going to vote for a guy who calls himself a Nazi. I'm certainly not going to vote for a guy who says bring back slavery, okay? Or kill your political opponents. That's not that high a bar. That's like the lowest bar ever. Will you not vote for a Nazi? And we asked them, they couldn't clear the bar.
They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where the President of the United States doesn't have standing? That's how we lost.
Trump's legal team filed 60 lawsuits alleging voter fraud, and quite a few of them actually went to trial. And every single one of them found zero evidence of voter fraud. Meanwhile, Trump's own departments of Justice, Defense, Homeland Security, the Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, NSA, and CISA all put out a joint statement stating that the November 3rd election was the most secure in American history.
When he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th.
49 hours declaring it a riot. We have a breach of the Capitol.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
This answer shows that J.D. Vance does not value my vote and would not hold it sacred, would not try to protect my vote even if it was against him. Watch this.
Well, I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris. You know, one of the stark sort of aspects of that debate that really stuck with me was when they were talking about January 6th and how Mike Pence certified the election, and they were wondering if J.D. Vance would certify the election should Trump lose. And, you know, J.D. Vance didn't really give us a definitive answer, and I'm disappointed in that fact. And I don't think that I can trust someone, you know, with my vote if they're not going to respect it.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. Again, I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good, you know what.
Respectfully, sir, you're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
Phil, I'm the president, and you're fake news. I will ask Congress to convene a special session so we can repeal and replace. We'll be filing a plan. We have a really terrific, I believe, healthcare plan coming out. We're going to have a healthcare plan that's going to be second to none. It's going to be great. As I never said, repeal it and replace it within 64 days. We haven't failed. We're negotiating, and we continue to negotiate. We have 2 plans coming out in a very short period of time. We're going to come up with a healthcare plan. The plan is coming out over the next 4 weeks. We're going to produce phenomenal healthcare. And we already have the concept of the plan. We'll be announcing that in about 2 months. We have a great plan coming out within 2 weeks, a full and complete healthcare plan. We're going to be doing a very inclusive healthcare plan. I'll be signing it sometime very soon. We're going to be introducing a tremendous healthcare plan sometime hopefully prior to the end of the month. It's just about completed now.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay.
There is not a single state that allows infanticide, nor a single Democratic Congress member who advocates for it. About 99% of all abortions happen in the first 20 weeks, most in the first trimester. Anything after 24 weeks is illegal in almost every state, though some states make exceptions for the health or life of the mother.
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that. I think I am a nice person. Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. We're all a little chubby, but Rosie's just worse than most of us. But it's not the chubbiness. Rosie is a very unattractive person, both inside and out. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired. You leave it the way it is. There have been very few complaints the way it is.
So if Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses?
That is correct. But in order to execute gay and lesbian citizens because of their sexual orientation, it's a strike at the heart and soul of who we are as a nation. I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Believe me. If any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences. The only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. Take them away from their parents, perform sex change operation, and send them back home.
This guy managed to get elected president in 2016, and he's way too close to possibly getting reelected this year. I mean, listen to that ridiculous scenario. Your son goes off to school in the morning. They do a brutal operation on him. Apparently, Trump means that they cut off your kid's genitals, although it's not clear whether this is somehow done by the school nurse or whether they have some secret arrangement with a local hospital. And then, apparently, they put Jimmy back on the school bus that afternoon and send him home. Honestly, it's a little weird to hear this medically absurd story from right-wingers who claim that transgender people are the ones who don't understand biology.
It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes, people go like that. Talk about transgender, everyone goes crazy.
Remarkable. A true statement from Donald Trump. Even the P.T. Barnum of our time can't believe how quickly this concocted culture war over trans rights has captivated the GOP base and how easy it is to now manipulate them with it. He literally spells out the gross power it gives him over those Republican voters because they don't want policies, they want prejudice.
Keep that in mind when you're watching this. The question was about childcare.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it.
Now, people who didn't watch any news, of course, did worse. That makes sense. If you're not watching the news, you don't know as much, you would think, and you get 1.2 questions right in domestic policy out of 5. But here comes the interesting twist. When they asked by different news outlets, Fox News,
significantly worse than the average. They only answered 1.04 out of 5 correct, meaning that you are better off not watching any news than watching Fox News if you want to be informed about what's actually happening in the country.
Fox will pay a stunning $787.5 million. Dominion accused Fox of knowingly and repeatedly broadcasting false conspiracy theories that the voting machine company rigged the 2020 presidential election.
Part of what Trump is counting on is for people to get desensitized. And I believe that more Americans have to be, willing to take him at his word and to be outraged by what he represents.
For Donald Trump as a former president and possible future president to use that language, knowing that that language led to the Holocaust, he knows what he's doing and he thinks it works.
Where incredibly, the Donald went with, if I lose the election, I'm going to have to blame it on the Jews. It's too incredible to hear it from me. Let's watch it for ourselves.
And I'll put it to you very simply and as gently as I can. I wasn't treated properly by the voters who happen to be Jewish. I don't know, do they know what the hell is happening? If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy.
Who exactly is the enemy? There are 345 million Americans. Does Donald Trump mean that anybody who votes against him is his enemy? Or is he just being specific about Kamala Harris? She's the enemy. She's the vice president of the United States. Donald Trump talks about enemies. Vice President Harris talks about something that is deeply, deeply true, that no matter what our differences are in tax policy, we have much more in common than we do in disagreement or difference.
But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
And this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. But think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you...
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
How many Americans are out there who are going to shrug their shoulders and say, you know what, I'm exhausted. This guy has been impeached twice. This guy has been adjudicated a rapist by a New York judge. He's got 5 or 6 felony counts against him. This guy cannot tell the truth. I do not want to listen to him.
This is from the Univision town hall last night with Kamala Harris. Try to imagine a moment where Donald Trump could have given this answer or reacted this way or interacted and connected with another human being who is vulnerable, who is crying. Try to imagine Donald Trump connecting.
I'm an American citizen, born to Mexican parents. They were here before I was even born. They've worked their whole lives. But with the way immigration laws change over time, I was only able to help my dad get his legal status squared away, but not my mom's. My mom passed away just 6 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And she was never, ever able to get the type of care and service that she needed or deserved. Sorry.
Take your time. Take your time.
So my question for you is, what are your plans, or do you have plans to support that subgroup of immigrants who have been here their whole lives and have to live and die in the shadows?
I'm so sorry for you.
Thank you.
You must remember your mother as she lived.
Mm-hmm.
I have enough of a feeling about your strength that it probably comes from her to know she would want you to remember her as she lived and not as she died, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Your father was able to earn his pathway to citizenship, but your mother was not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to assume it's because part of the problem is that we do have a broken immigration system,
Mm-hmm.
including it being the case that even though when we were elected in 2020, and the first bill we offered Congress within hours of taking the oath was a bill to fix the immigration system, including creating a comprehensive earned pathway to citizenship for hardworking people. And it was not taken up. And now we look at a situation where people are suffering. The reality is that in terms of having access to health care, had your mother been able to gain citizenship, she would have been entitled to health care that may have alleviated her suffering and yours. And this is one example of the fact that there are real people who are suffering because of an inability to put solutions in front of politics. I mean, an example of this on immigration policy is that as it relates to what we need to do to strengthen our border. A bipartisan group of members of Congress, including one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came together with one of the strongest border security bills we've had in decades. And it included 1,500 more border agents to go to the border to help those hardworking folks who are working around the clock. The border agents supported the bill. It included more resources to stem the flow of fentanyl, which is killing people of every background in every region of our country. And Donald Trump found out about that bill, realized it would be a solution, and told them not to put it on the floor for a vote because he would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. Real leadership is about solving problems on behalf of the people. And I'm so sorry for what you've been through. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. And, you know, my mother came to the United States at the age of 19. And I know what it is like to have a hardworking mother who loves you and to lose that. But I know her spirit is alive. And will you tell me her name and let's speak her name?
Maria Dolores Figueroa.
Maria Dolores?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we speak her name, okay?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
That's care and concern for another human being and their situation. And there's not a world where you've ever seen Donald Trump do that. Not a single time. At least one where he wasn't hamming it for the cameras.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good night.
you again.